Hello, everyone. Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to my weekly behind-the-scenes DM-only live stream, Crafting Annihilation, which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Tomb of Annihilation. If you are playing characters Mannix, Kaless, Gillian, George, or Theron, avert thine eyes, step away. This includes my wife, who is currently working from home upstairs. Hopefully she is busy on a conference call right now and not paying attention, because this is not meant for you. But for the rest of you, welcome. We stream our Tomb of Annihilation sessions live on YouTube every Friday evening. You can watch all of our D&D live series as well as reviews and Let's Plays on my YouTube page and read weekly session recaps at roguewatson.com. You can follow me on Twitter at roguewatson and join our official Discord discussion group. Invite link in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel, please check out patreon.com/roguewatson. Shouts to Platinum patrons Andrew, Richard, Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, Nick, Andy, and Chris. And gold patrons RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy Nima, Marcos Dade Vicente, Gilberto, Sean A.K., Cert2B, Adam, The Lizard Lion, Sam, Ross, Lumpy Spuds, and Jerome. Thank you all very much for your support. For our campaign, we use Roll20.net for streaming. I use Open Broadcaster software with Streamlabs. It is the Corona Apocalypse. Yeah, I talked a little bit about that during my Monday update. I kind of want to just escape from that, as I'm sure a lot of you do right now, so I'm not probably going to harp on it too much. I'm going to turn the brightness down on my webcam now. What the hell is going on there? Make me look a little bit more normal. Yeah, it's been nuts. So as I mentioned, my stuff is not currently impacted, at least video wise. So and we play on Roll20. I know a lot of groups I'm seeing online are having to grapple with playing online for the first time. So a lot of people are looking at those kind of resources. So obviously, I highly recommend a lot of these things, which, you could just play with Discord, you could use Fantasy Grounds, you can use Roll20. There's, D&D Beyond is lots of resources. It's never been easier to play D&D with whatever you need, but hopefully everybody is staying safe, staying sane when self-quarantining. That's always important. And enjoy talking about D&D and the titular Tomb of Annihilation. So this is going to be a fun session because not only do we get to plan more Tomb, but we also get to kind of break down how the players acted for our session so far. Welcome, Tiny. Welcome, Cert. So let's see. We left off. They were right at the entrance here. Between Mannix having a superior perception and George having a bandana of true sight, this party is very well equipped to notice all the dangers, which is probably good because that was, at least for Mannix's sake, that was by design. Like, that was his character development. So I certainly want to give them all the information I can give them while still hopefully having a few tricks up my sleeve. But even with kind of teasing them that there was a creature in here, they were still very cautious, but ultimately decided not to jack with it, which is, of course, the right thing to do, because the Shadow Demon doesn't really bother attacking anybody because they didn't dispel the darkness or anything like that, so they ignored it. Out of the two paths, and this is where we start getting really interesting, because from here, it's really totally up to the players in terms of where they want to go and which things they want to tackle or not tackle. So they decided not to go to the grand staircase first, instead to turn left and go towards, this is Obolaka's tomb. They looked at it through the window, and instead of trying to break down the window, which is probably, a seemingly dangerous thing to do, especially with these giant disc of eyes looking around the room, they went down into the sewer grate. This was kind of a bummer in Roll20 because I tried to explain that you could go north and south here. There wasn't a good way to show that because of the way you can't really do, these kind of overlapping elevations very well. So I wonder if that would have maybe changed their opinion on going north, for example, to explore more of this watery path, although it's not a very interesting path to go on until you go all the way over. I actually have to zoom out on this map. It's so freaking big. Unless you go all the way over to the northeast corner, then it gets really interesting. But I think we might end up seeing that anyway next session, depending on if they find this secret door in this next tomb. But instead, they went south. They saw the gas. Immediately, Gillian decided to use Gust of Wind, which is, of course, the best way to get rid of gas. So it's really funny that Theron mentioned that he was about to cast like Flaming Sphere to get rid of the gas, which would have caused it all to explode. And then the players were dynamite at spotting secret doors. Hello, Nemo. In this session last week. It was crazy. Like Gillian spotted a secret door here immediately. George was able to spot both secret doors in here. So it wasn't even Mannix that was spotting these things. It was just other players just rolling really good perception checks for whatever reason. I believe it was Theron that took point and actually noticed the chest down here. And of course, Kaless immediately ran down to it. She fucking nailed the check, which means so far flying colors. Like they didn't jack with the Shadow Demon. They dispersed the gas, and Kaless nails the check to actually open the chest. Had she failed it, if you fail it, you lose your thieves' tools, and if you fail it by 5 or more, the chest like teleports you inside, and it's like a Houdini thing where you're trapped inside the chest. It drops into the water. But with her constitution, she would have survived for like 4 or 5 rounds, I think. So I don't think it would have been. I mean, it would have maybe been an exciting scenario of everybody like trying to get her out. But even with the more challenging suffocation rules that we have, which I've kind of drawn from the Dungeon Master's Guide, given that she's actually a incredibly beefy rogue, at least on the con side, I don't think it would have been that debilitating. But I decided to roll some more spell scrolls just because I think spell scrolls are an easy thing to give to players and kind of a fun thing. Give them just finite uses of a spell. I'm okay with like showering players with finite items and you want to see players use that stuff. So I went ahead and actually used a random spell table thing that I had bookmarked from like forever ago. There was like a previous Crafting Annihilation that somebody suggested this website, and I had them roll Kaless roll a D100 to get some more spells out of there. So hopefully the players will use those, but I just thought I'd give them some more rewards. The tomb should be full of rewards, damn it. So they saw the secret door here. They were able to, since they already seen the room, they knew kind of what they were up against, and the players played it very right. They were very cautious. They were able to grab a mask, and then with the one person who had the mask on, I believe it was Theron, actually took point a lot in this session, which was fun. Went around and collected all the masks and then gave them out to the players like kind of ID badges to go inside. So solved it really easily. And it's interesting, as a DM, because obviously I'm afforded all the information. So I'm never quite sure of, what is going to make sense to the players and what is not going to make sense. And so far, they've done a really good job of parsing that first. I'm trying to find there it is, the first warning. So the enemy is opposed, one stands between them. That was the opening puzzle cube thing. That was correct. In darkness it hides. That's the Shadow Demon. That is correct. Dawn the masker be seen. That was this room. So now they're starting to realize, okay, all of these different rooms seem to have, at least the main ones, seem to have all these different lines about them. And of course, they just stumbled into the Speak No Truth to the Doomed Child room. So they've done a really good job so far of using these warnings. So that'll be really fun. What's interesting is, and I didn't think about this, but these warnings, because they're so useful, they're actually posted on this main staircase, which means if the players actually go down a different way, for example, if they go down that back path into the workshop and go down that spiral staircase, which starts at level 2, you can do that, but you actually miss all these warnings until you reach the staircase again and realize that there's some more warnings up there. So that's kind of an interesting feature of not going down this primary path, is you might actually miss some of these clues, which are really quite useful. So they were able to pass this without a fight at all, which was kind of cool. Theron grabbed the ring. He was possessed by the spirit. This was something that I didn't quite realize how interested a player would be in talking to this spirit, and I should have, because it is a role-playing opportunity, but I was unprepared for somebody wanting to glean information. And I think it mentions the fact that the spirits actually don't have a lot of useful information in terms of what they know about. It says all the trickster gods are eager to get their revenge on a Serac. They can offer only limited guidance regarding the tomb and its denizens, but they encourage the characters to seek out other trickster god spirits and other supernatural assistance in the final battle against the Archlich. That's all we get. That's one little paragraph. Limited guidance regarding the tomb and its denizens. So from there, I just have to decide, okay, what do these spirits know and how helpful are they actually going to be? And I kind of took that to mean, well, let's just use their personality. So let's just see whatever their personality is. And what we do get is in a lot of the rooms, it'll say specifically, hey, if you've got this trickster spirit on you, then here's how they respond to this particular room. I don't think there's any of those in level 1, but I think starting at level 2, it assumes that players have begun to gather some of these trickster spirits, and so it'll explain kind of how those spirits will interact with their host player. So that starts getting more interesting. But what I didn't anticipate was a player just sitting there and trying to have a chat with their spirit. So I was trying to just ad lib all of that immediately. But I think it went over pretty well. Again, the trickster gods aren't supposed to be fonts of information. They're more just kind of buffs with some role playing additions. And what I didn't realize is that the player had this. The player character had that spirit in them, but I tried to impart the fact that this personality actually was like a flaw with your character, and not just the fact that you have this spirit that has this flaw, this certain personality trait. And that's something I don't think the player understood for the first couple like times that the spirit was used basically, or chatted with or whatever else. So finally, I'm just like, no, like this is actually like altering your personality. So it's something that didn't quite get conveyed correctly. That hopefully, finally, I did convey by the end of the session, which is to say that if the spirits inhabit you, like yes, they have their own personality flaws, but because it's possessing you, that flaw is now basically your flaw, and you should. I want to encourage players to be able to role play that flaw, and hopefully it's an enjoyable process to do that. So, and what's funny is Theron was so the point man for this session. He was in front, like doing a lot of the stuff and being the first in line to do a lot of things. And then to get that flaw, which is specifically, I am risk averse and a slave to routine, and immediately like the opposite of what he had been doing before that. So that was kind of an interesting change. And I believe Theron was one of the few that didn't actually drink from the fountain, for example. So that was probably a good job on his part to role play that a little bit more. But it was a bit confusing at first because I think he thought it was just like you've got this spirit that has that personality. No, it's actually like yes, that's true, but also it is altering your personality to have this spirit inside of you. So they spotted the secret door immediately. And then George immediately rolled another perception check. I hope George isn't like watching the stream because it was very suspicious that he was rolling these perception checks at like just the right time. It's like, oh yeah, you definitely want to roll a perception check like right here. Granted, had they gone down this hallway, I would have ruled that Mannix, because of his passive perception and the rule that we have, which is passive perception works if it's anywhere in like melee range, basically, is how I've ruled it. If you want to have anything beyond that, then give me a perception check to actually look at something. But for your passive to go off, that really only equates to, which means you won't like step on any pressure plates and things, which is still pretty effective, basically. Or in this case, if you're walking by a secret door, then it will immediately light up. But instead, George was just rolling a perception check as soon as he walked into this hallway and noticed this secret door. Now, this was really, really interesting because the players could see down. It's only 25 feet down. And there's no like turn or anything. I believe it's literally like straight down to here is the next room. In fact, we're going to hop onto that level real quick. And you can see I even put the players here because I wasn't sure. Let's put them on the GM layer so don't forget that they were hopping down here. And I think we took a break here. So it was everybody is... They'd noticed the dwarves. I painted a picture of the room. Notice how I did not put them on this map yet. That was a conscious decision that I made, that I described this room and really wanted to, and obviously you can see on Roll20. This is the interesting thing about Roll20 is you can definitely see when the dungeon maps start and stop and where the transitions are. Whereas if you're all just, theater of the mind, you might not realize that, hey, you're going down these stairs, you're actually entering like the next level. Now, it is a very open floor plan dungeon. The players could have just gone down the steps on the grand staircase and made it to level 2. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. This is a very interesting back path, though, because you can immediately have another big, basically role-playing sequence with Withers pretty early on, which is the only thing that's a little disappointing. I wish this wasn't right at level 2. It just seems a little sudden, especially given that my players immediately turned left and went to Obalaka's first, which means one of the first things they were going to do in the dungeon was go to like the behind-the-scenes workshop, which is a little disappointing, and so I was a little bummed about that. But I wasn't going to stop them. So, and I told them that, like, yeah, you guys can, I think Kales, like, was able to sneak down with like a high stealth score and kind of look at everything going on, and they could tell there was half a dozen tomb dwarves. Even Mannix was like, look, let's take these guys out because I think they're making the traps and everything. I didn't explain anything. They couldn't really see there's another door here or anything like that. They just saw that there was a workshop here. And I thought we left the break, and I believe you can see me probably panicking. And I'm quickly like, I think I was rolling hit points at one point for all these because I literally hadn't planned like any. I mean, I had kind of contingency things, but I really wasn't planning on working through level 2 that much yet, which was obviously a mistake on my part. And I hadn't, revealed there was a Tomb Guardian here or anything like that. And I was thinking, okay, so when we come back from break, they're going to go in here. We're going to have this big combat session. And then from there, we're going to probably make it to Withers. And then I'll probably maybe stop the session there. And, after we do a role play, we'll do the role playing scene with Withers, and then we'll see where that takes us. And then from there, because I mean, here you've got the staircase here that literally you can just take these stairs all the way down to level 5 without any problems. It's like this whole back way path. So it gets really, really crazy for a DM to try to plan for all that. For whatever reason, I don't know if the players could tell that I was freaking out a little bit, or maybe they were like, hey, let's go up and check out more of level 1. For whatever reason, they actually decided to turn around and not do any of that, which is certainly a benefit for me because I do think this would have been a little early. But again, I wasn't going to stop them from doing that. But it worked out in my favor. The only thing I can think of is that I did say that you guys, if you all wanted to go down there and try to get a stealth round, you'd have to do a group stealth check. But they even mentioned, Theron's got Pass Without Trace. There would have been ways for them to probably get a pretty effective stealth round off. So, I don't know. Maybe they decided, okay, we'll table this later. We can always come back here. That's something we can do. So, for whatever reason, I won't speculate, but they decided to actually not go down and do this, and instead shift gears and go back up to level 1. And yeah, that was a discussion, which, by the way, I do like the Discord chat, the no players allowed thing. Was a new channel we set up in the Discord server. If you want to specifically chat about spoiler stuff, because some of my players are in the YouTube chat. So if you do want to talk about spoilers and things yet to come and all that, which is obviously a big fun part about talking about the tomb, do use that Discord server chat. I will mute my Discord in the future, so you won't get those so I won't hit those notifications and you won't hear them when you're watching the stream. But I do like using that chat as opposed to not that I want to see the YouTube chat dry up or anything, but if you specifically have spoiler stuff to talk about, definitely use that no players allowed chat tech server. So instead, we went up to room number 8, which is the magnet statue. This time, George was in the lead, which worked out really well because he's got a great strength. He's the only one with a great strength. This is my one weakness for this party. As good as they are at so many things, they are really shitty at strength athletic stuff. Basically, George is the only one that's got any kind of athletics. The rest of them all suck, which, if you recall, was a big problem for our Firefinger dungeon. They were all just falling all over the place, not able to climb very well. So I don't remember if there's any particular areas like that in the dungeon that would cause them such a headache. But this was one. And what's interesting is, you always look at it okay, they're going to approach from here because that just seems like the natural way to go. And if they fail, they're going to have to, fly 40 feet over here and take 46. But what happened is, even if he fails here, he basically only gets dragged 15 feet. I guess I could roll it's still 15. So you only take 1d6 damage. And then, yeah, the shield disintegrates any metal it's touching. But unless you've got your sword in your hand at the moment, which maybe you do, and I don't think it destroys magical stuff anyway. So it's kind of I don't know. I thought about maybe changing it to something else, but I still liked the magnet idea. What I did like is the way the players were very inventive about solving it, which was Mannix pulled out this ladder from his vest of useful items and strung a ladder kind of sideways, which gave them advantage on their athletics check to cross. And if you notice, they really needed that advantage both ways. They were rolling really bad, it's a DC 10, and with advantage, I think 2 or 3 of them barely made it across. Then we get to Marcos, welcome. Then we get to the best part of the show last week, which was the fountain. Holy crap, this fountain. And somebody pointed out, I think it was either on the Discord or on a YouTube comment, that I had mentioned that the one thing nobody's ever going to do is drink from a fountain in the middle of a dungeon. And they fucking did. And not only did they, but it was an amazing instance of me, the DM, not really having to do a goddamn thing and just sit there with a grin on my face as the players all psychologically bullied each other into drinking from this fountain. It was amazing. Like, I think the first thing that happens, and this is what's interesting, we talked about this also on crafting, or at least somebody mentioned this, which is have it so the first person to drink from the fountain should get the healing, because that will inspire all the characters to drink from the fountain. So, in other words, the DM could cheat and just say, like, okay, well, you get the temporary hit points, which is a clever thing to do. I didn't do that, though. If you notice, I legitimately rolled the D4 every time on the GM layer in Roll20. And the first one I got, which is Kales shoving the water down Orvix's throat, is a 4, which means Orvix got temporary hit points, so he's healed. So everybody's like, oh, hell yeah. And I believe Gillian drank from it next, just like, oh, this is great. And then she lost her voice. I rolled a 2. George drank from it next, and he rolled a 1. I rolled a 1. And notice, again, I wasn't having the players roll. And usually I have the players roll where I can, but this one I really wanted to keep secret. I didn't want to tell the players, like, what's going on or how many random effects can occur, any of that. I really wanted to keep all those cards close to the chest. So I was rolling those on the GM roll in secret, and George, it's a lot of damage, and I rolled really well on the damage as well. I don't know if it's still on here. Actually, it probably is, because we didn't have combat last session, did we? In fact, there's the athletics checks coming back around. There it is. 52 on an 8d10 is fucking scary. 2 8s and 2 10s in there. George did make the con save, so we took half of that. But imagine if he had failed that con save. 52 damage from drinking water from a fountain. The tomb does not fuck around, everybody. He made the save, so he was able to take like 20-some damage. He's pissed. And at that point, everybody starts freaking out, which was an amazing moment for me, the DM, because they're just all trying to figure out what the fuck is going on with this thing. And then finally, this is when they start bullying each other, because Mannix and Kales are both like, oh, we want to take a drink. And I think Mannix says, okay, Kales, you drink it. If something good happens, then I'll drink it. And this was public information, the damage, and Mannix is correctly saying, like, oh, hey, if that were me and I failed that con save, I would be dead. And I'm thinking, not only would you be dead, but I believe this is an auto kill. If I'm looking in here, it says, if the damage reduces the creature to 0 hit points, it dies and turns to dust. R.I.P. That's it. That's nuts. So, which that is high damage, but still, that's fucking scary. Instead, Kales did drink and rolled. I rolled a 1 again. You can see right here. So she took the damage. She made a con save. Con is something that my players are actually very good at. At least Theron and George and Kales all have incredible constitution, which is going to help them for a lot of these traps. And although, what's interesting though is that Mannix has the Dungeon Delver, but I don't think this counts as a trap. This counts as just you drinking from a fountain, you dumbass. Kales actually, I rolled a lot worse damage for that. This might have been a case where maybe it would have been fun to have the players roll this damage just for funsies, but she made the con save and only took like 15 damage. So they were able to restore Gillian's voice, and then at that point, everybody's just noping out of this fountain. But what an amazing, amazing thing to have happen. I was elated at that. And they had to take a short rest after that, having not even actually had combat. They have not had a single combat encounter since their last short rest, which was after the battle with the Red Wizards outside and the demon. It was just them going through, and they had no, they didn't set up any traps. They didn't have to fight the whites in the dungeon. They didn't have to set off the gas. Kales didn't get stuck in the thing. They didn't fight the tomb dwarves down below. All they did was drink from this fountain and a couple of them took a shit ton of damage, and they had a short rest from there. That's amazing. That's fantastic. So they came around this way. I had a little bit of fun with like zapping Mannix's hammer, which was kind of fun, but I wanted to have it. I don't know. The magnet statue is just not that interesting because if there was a thing where there was like a wall of spikes or something that made it more interesting, but it literally just kind of shoves you over there. So it's maybe not the most interesting hazard, but I tried to have a little bit of fun with it. But then the players were able to come around here. They short rested. They went around the grand staircase. I did find an image that I want to add and eventually show them, though. There's a really good image I've seen on, and if you search, do like a Google image search, I'm sure that you've seen it as well. Add a handout in here. Oops, there it is. Which is, let's see if I can find it. It's a cool image of, I don't know if it's an artist's rendition of what the grand staircase looks like, but I want to include that if I can find it. I meant to upload this earlier. Let's see, Tomb handouts. There it is. I can just drag and drop. But it's a neat kind of isometric top-down look at what the staircase looks like, which we went around and we went to the east, which this is, I teased, since they never did walk towards the east at all, towards the grand staircase. Here it is. And I want to go ahead and put this in their journal, I think. I think it's a really neat image if you haven't seen this one before, and I hadn't seen this one either until I started looking at a lot of other recaps basically had this image, but it's a really cool kind of what this giant square staircase that plummets down would look like. I don't think that's official. I don't know if that's official artwork or not. It's not in Tomb of Annihilation, though. But my plan with the skeleton key was to show the key whenever they moved towards the east in here, but they never did. They immediately went to the west and went to Obalaka's tomb. So it wasn't until they reached this grand staircase all the way around, they'd gone around this whole area, that I then, I believe, showed the key, and the key ran through, or did I? Did I show? I think I did it that way. The key ran through this skull, which has fire eyes and an open mouth, and like you're supposed to walk through the tunnel mouth like a interactive museum, which is really what the Tomb of Annihilation is. And one of the lights went out, and that was supposed to tease how this kind of trap operates, as well as give off like, you guys are probably going to want to get this key. And I did end up including the whole skeleton gate thing as a actual puzzle, or not a puzzle, a quest. And once the players acquire this one, defeat the skeleton, I'm going to add that as an addition, like you found a skeleton on level 1 that's got a triangle head, and basically try and tease the fact that they're probably going to need to collect all these different skeleton keys before they get to 5, at least hopefully realizing a couple keys. They still don't know how many total they need, though. Instead, George went through just heedlessly, as he does, No, George was attacked. So the giant frog went through next. So they were worried about the skull being open. So Manic summons his giant frog and sends it through as a like, let's see, which is a great use of summons, frankly. Although it is a funny running gag that we have that he treats his giant frog statue, wondrous figurine, so shittily. But he sends the frog through, which that winks out the other light. So now the funny thing is the players send in an NPC, which was their one safe shot, and now the trap is primed and ready to spring. George goes through the tunnel. Immediately the jaws close. Unfortunately, as you all know that watch the episode, I rolled a fucking 2, which it's a weird trap. It is not a saving throw. It is an attack roll, which is odd. So it's more like, I don't know, just the skull is attacking you, basically. So that means, which has got a +10. So even against somebody with like George with an AC of 18, I've got like a 60 or 70% chance to hit, or whatever the math is there. And I failed spectacularly. So George makes it through, and then both the lights come back on. And George makes it through, and I'm starting to describe what this room looks like, as well as the flame skull and the child's voice and the warrens and the spiders, because again, George has that true sight, so he can see all that shit. The weird skeleton with the shaped head, all of these things. And that's where we left off with our session, which I think is a pretty cool kind of cliffhanger at the end of the session. So the party made it through, I want to say, 60% of level 1, I think. I mean, level 1's not that big. It's basically the 3 tombs, the fountain and the magnet statue, and then I guess stuff in the water. which we did some of the stuff in the water. We didn't do the mimic up here and the giant plunging hole that goes down 100 feet. So if the players are pretty completionist about it, obviously we're going to do Moa's Tomb starting tomorrow. From there, depending on if the players bother to make a perception check in here, or if Mannix ends up being, getting next to this wall here, which this does look a little bit suspicious if you look at it from their point of view. You can see there's tunnels. I'll scroll down a little bit so you can see better. All in here, and the dynamic lighting makes it look really cool. And all of a sudden you see this one area to the north right there that does not have any of these tunnels. So it does seem a little bit suspicious. So that's just kind of a, Roll20. Obviously, if you're playing Theater of the Mind, it's a lot easier to hide secret doors than it is on something like Roll20. We were playing on a virtual tabletop space, but it's not a big deal if they spot this one, because frankly, dealing with the giant plunging waterfall could be very interesting, could also be utterly terrifying because it immediately goes down to level 5, and I don't know how players are supposed to get the hell back up there. Actually, I do know you can get to that secret staircase, or you can get to that magic mouth door that could teleport you into the oubliette. Every session I need to try to say the word oubliette because I do love it. So for the Flame Skull, the players will be in a bit of a split situation right here because, and I still have the actual, this is a hard dynamic lighting close. You've got this dark tunnel. I kind of wanted to tease the fact that, I guess I could open it, but I like the fact that players really don't know what's beyond, although I can describe it to them. But I like because I don't know, it just looks cool, I think, having this skull be this hard line of sight blocker. But right now you've only got George inside dealing with this child, which is, I believe, the granddaughter of the last queen. Let's see where it says. Actually, I could pull it up on here. So we are in level 1 of chapter 5. Level 1, the Rotten Halls. And we are in room number 14. This is Moa's room. This is just level 1 stuff. Moa's tomb. See the concavity of the skull, maze of tiny passages. Succeeds on a wisdom perception check. See the faint yet grotesque scuttling of insects from within. Hundreds of tarantula-sized undead spiders crawl through these warrens. That's so fucking creepy. The skull in the crystal box belongs to Nepartak, the 10-year-old granddaughter of Napaka, the last queen of Omu, which Napaka is found on a lower level. Her tomb is found, and she's got some treasures and some traps involved there. Magic of the crystal box preserves her consciousness, but centuries of solitude and horror have caused her mind to blank out the details of her plight. The first character to enter the tube hears Nepartek call out telepathically, which is how I teased the end of the last session. Nepartek magically senses the presence of intruders using telepathy to question all the characters. Roleplay her as a terrified child lost in the dark. In her panic, she might ask any of the following questions. Why can't I see anything? Where am I? How did I get here? Are you friends with my father? Is he looking for me? I don't know why it mentions the father. The father's never mentioned again in the whole thing. Or I guess neither of them are mentioned, are they? Because she is the granddaughter of the actual queen. Who was the Medusa in Nangalore? Was that the mother, or is that somebody else? Because we never did go to Nangalore. Chapter 2. To read up on my history of Vane, Omo, and Queen. Does it mention who Zalcor is? Is she just a queen from before? Let's see, Zalcore, actually, with the accent on the E. Doesn't really mention that she's just a queen. Well, unfortunately, I didn't use Nangalore at all anyway, so none of this stuff actually matters. The one regret, I didn't use this cool map when you go to Nangalore. To safely explore the area, characters must calm Nepartak without revealing her true predicament. Lying to her requires a successful DC 12 deception check. The characters reveal, which that's not a hard check, although not everybody's built for charisma. Mr. George, what is your deception like? Your deception's a -1. You are not the best one to talk to a flame skull child. If the characters reveal that she's nothing more than a disembodied skull, if they fail 3 charisma checks to deceive her, or if they simply ignore her, Departic grows increasingly anxious, then flies into a murderous rage. Doesn't speak, communicating something at a range of 30 feet. When she attacks, swarms of mummified spiders pour out from the niches at the start of the following round. Well, I'd obviously have them pour out that same round. I think I used 8 of them. 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah. Who do we appreciate? So, what's interesting here is that only George is in this tomb currently. So, I'm definitely going to have. We're obviously going to open with some role playing between George and this skull. And depending on how things, but I want to switch back and forth to the other players too. I don't want to just necessarily leave George in here alone dealing with this. So I want to try to go back and forth, but the other players aren't going to know anything about what's going on. They have to first get through the door, which they've probably figured out by now that as long as you have these lights, the eyeballs lit up, you can run through here. So the next 2 people can run through into Moa's tomb without any problems. And then the third person will get attacked. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if we include Orvex. So 2 people could make it in. The third one would have to dodge the attack. And then the other 2 could make it in. So you only have 1 more attack that you would have to deal with, which they would probably fucking send Orvex in there. Or just, I mean, now that you know that it's an attack roll, which unfortunately, you know what I should have done? I should have put this on the GM layer. That's a big screw up I did, because this totally reveals like how this entire trap works. So what I should have done is rolled this on the GM layer and said that you dodge out of the way, knowing it was an attack roll. I think I'll do that for the future. Anytime something's an attack roll that's like a trap type thing, I probably want to keep that on the GM. Well, the bad thing is the players don't like that, though, also. That's a bummer. This goes back to our DM roundtable discussion of hidden versus public roles. Because now you know, of course, I guess you would know anyway that it's not a saving throw, it's an actual attack roll. You know it's a +10, which is pretty good. I mean, a 2 is, obviously a very bad roll, but usually wouldn't be that low. So you'd want to have your third person be the person with the highest AC, which would be, I guess, Theron. God, Theron is a 20 right now? Holy shit. Have him go third, and then he's got only like a, 50% chance of getting hit, which is probably good. Or you don't have to send everybody in there. Just send 2 more people in there to deal with the situation. What's interesting, though, is I'll, probably have George make 1 deception check as he talks, or count it as like a failure or something if, because it doesn't say, what if you just start asking questions? Would I count that as just a failure? Like if you don't start immediately trying to deceive the child? We'll kind of have to work with that depending on how this role-playing scene goes. I'll play it by ear, but I'm going to have like a number of kind of successes or failures in my head, like 3, I guess, that they would have to pass in order to avoid combat here. Now, if you're quick, the trick to doing this room is to quickly, probably while talking to the child, there's nothing stopping you from, it doesn't take an action to talk. I don't have anybody in initiative order, is just to run up and start opening the freaking tomb while you're talking to her, which is a successful DC 15 athletics check. That's all it takes. And opening the tomb does not upset the flame skull, which I guess the players, that's the one thing they wouldn't know. You would assume that opening that would cause the flame skull to go into a rage, but it really doesn't. It's only deceiving, or not being able to deceive the child causes it to go into a rage. So if they're quick, they can grab that and get out. They need the skeleton key. They don't know that yet, but hopefully they'll realize that. Basically, I'm thinking this is going to turn into a combat encounter, especially because we didn't do the one for Obolaka, and we didn't do one that whole last session. I think this could be a fun one. A flame skull can always be a fun enemy. It's very much a glass cannon. They're not hard. I mean, 13 armor class and 43 hit points. Kless can kill that thing in 1 hit, frankly. So there's a good chance this thing's not even going to do a damn thing. Although, I don't think I can give it a surprise round, though, at all. Even if it flies, because, I mean, everybody's aware that this creature's here, so... The one thing, it's got shield, which could keep it alive, I guess. That gives it a +5, so it'd make it an 18 armor class, which it could definitely use shield every round. So really, it's effectively got an 18 armor class. And then obviously, it's launching fireballs. I guess it can do one fireball. Although the fireballs would destroy the spiders too, which is a bit of a bummer. But nothing else is worth doing. I mean, Flaming Sphere, I think, is concentration. And that's going to be miserable. Because it's only got a +2 con. It's going to get attacked every single time. Using its just basic fire ray attack is actually better than Flaming Sphere, because it can do it twice for a +5 with an average of 10 fire damage. It does have magic resistance, which I'll have to remember. And it is resistant. It's immune to cold, fire, and poison, and resistant to lightning, necrotic, and piercing. I really got to remember that. Boy, almost nothing is like certain weapon ones like that. I wish D&D did that more often, in terms of like, so people actually had to like switch weapons more often to kind of maintain their max damage. You don't see that too often. What is blur? Concentration. Any attack against you has disadvantage. That's pretty good, but it requires an action to cast it and then requires concentration. I wish if I had time to set that up beforehand, but I don't think you've got time. And I don't know if the swarms of spiders are a good enough fodder. Basically, well, Magic Missile at level 2 could be pretty effective, because there's no to hit on that. Create 3 glowing darts at 1d4 +1 each. If you cast level 2, that's 4 darts. It's less damage than Fire Ray, it's just more consistent. So, Flaming Skull, I remember being really scary at low levels, because it is an enemy that has Fireball, and Fireball's a very, very powerful spell. It like got grandfathered in with how much power. There's no reason the third level spell should do 8d6 fire damage. It's nuts. The bummer is there's no way I could justify a Fireball not destroying like most of the spiders, especially if the spiders get the early initiative. That's gonna, I guess, depend. If the Flame Skull goes first, it would probably launch a fireball. If the spiders go first, they're going to crawl out and immediately start attacking. And if the Flame Skull launches a fireball, that's going to kill all the fucking spiders. So that would be a bit of a bummer. Unless somehow it was this same situation and the Flame Skull could launch a fireball down into this hallway. That would be interesting, because you could shoot through this thing. If there is combat, I may have to remove the sight blocker here and just explain that players out there could attack through the skull, but it would probably be like at least disadvantage at the very least, because it's like a tunnel that you're shooting through, which is not the most ideal situation. So I'm hoping that'll be interesting. Most likely a combat encounter, but maybe, they say all the right stuff. They nail the social bit of it. I don't know how big of a combat encounter I actually want to use for the skeleton key. They just seem so goofy and silly. Like, they're supposed to have these daggers they can attack you with, but they're going to last for like seconds. I mean, come on. So I think it's more interesting if they just try to escape, which, I mean, I could have it maybe go through the secret door. They could certainly open those. That'd be pretty funny. Use its action to maybe escape. I picture the skeleton keys as more of these goofy little like treasure goblins from Diablo, where they're enemies but they don't really attack you. They just try to run away, and you're trying to capture them, because the players need these skeleton keys. So I try to use them as like these funny ways of luring the players into these nasty positions. Maybe if they try to reach for the key, I have the key kind of bury itself into these walls, and then I have the swarms of spiders come out and attack. And at that point, that could piss off the Flame Skull, and maybe that just ends up triggering a whole combat encounter there. And then that provides a Moa's thing, which is a Staff of the Python, which seems like a cool item that the players could really use. Unfortunately, it summons a giant snake, which would kind of freak my wife out a little bit. And then Moa, which one is Moa? Moa is actually the lawful good one. I must always speak the truth is the flaw. And that's the one that gives you the action to turn invisible, which is crazy powerful. And it literally is just at will invisibility. Like, holy shit. That is so fucking powerful. Wow. I mean, it ends as soon as they do something, which is how invisibility works, but still, you can just use an action to turn invisible. That's real powerful. So from there, they will either explore up here. If they see the secret door, I could see them. What's the only thing that's going to suck is if they decide to turn left here and to see if there's anything here. And what I'll probably do is just hand wave it. Like, you travel for some time and you eventually realize you've gone all the way around to where the sewer grate is. And there's nothing else along the way. Like, it goes underneath some areas, and because there's no point in having tokens just crawl around this fucking thing with nothing going on. So, and they would know that there's nothing there. So I would just explain that to them rather than take their tokens and arduously go along the path. But we could end up dealing with the waterfall here. There's a mimic, and the whole thing is you just trying to not fall down. I believe you're given a couple different saves. Well, one save is do you fall or not, and the other save is do you take damage or not. Probably rule that to half damage because you're still falling a fucking 100 feet. Down to level 5 where there's an aboleth, so I'll have to have that prepped just in case they end up falling down there. Wongo's Tomb, if they decide to finish level 1, has the cool fan trap. I am going to change how these traps work because I do not like them. And I'm going to change it where they're all basically the same Constitution saving throw, and they do the same damage. So I'm getting rid of the Rust one and the like instant kill disintegrate one, and instead going to have a cold one, a hot one, and like a decaying one. And it will be, of course, frost damage, fire damage, and necrotic damage, and it's just going to be the same thing as whatever the frost one is. What is this, room number 16? So it'll be a DC 15 con saving throw, taking 10d8 cold damage on a failed save, which that is more than that fountain drink. That is still a scary fucking number. I mean, I rolled on 8d10, I rolled a 52. This is, what did I just say? 10. Oh, no, sorry, it's 10d8. Okay, so it's actually not using the d10s. D10s are pretty scary. But still, 10d8 has an average of 45 fucking damage. Yikes. Yikes. If you succeed, you can take half damage, so 20 damage for either 3 different people or the same one could hop in the chest, depending on, hopefully you've got your good con saves in there. And you still have to fight a mummy, which has a Mace of Terror, which, you know what, if that's a certain mummy with a certain ability, do I need to actually put that Mace of Terror in their character sheet? That I haven't thought of before, and I would not remember if I don't put it in there. Which, this is a weird case of, this is the only one where they have to actually fight the manifestation of the spirit. So it's not actually like a +1 weapon or anything like that. Oh, the mummy already has Dreadful Glare. Isn't that the same damn thing? Mummy targets one creature can see within 60 feet of it. Succeed on a DC 11 Wisdom saving throw. Or become frightened until the end of the mummy's next turn. Oh, sorry, no, it's not the same thing. It's frightened or paralyzed. Mace of Terror is frightened, but also the creature must spend its turn trying to move away as far away from you as it can. It actually is like the fear spell. Oh, it's also each creature in a 30-foot radius. It's an AoE and a higher DC. Oh, shit, yeah. Okay, so we need to add... We actually need to add that. That does count as an action. So... I'm going to put that... Okay, we'll just copy all of this out. They don't need to know it has 3. I mean, 3 charges. It's never going to last... It's not going to last 3 rounds. It's going to last 1 round if I'm lucky. It's got AC of 11 and 50 hit points. Yeah, it's probably not going to do a whole lot. Can I add this as a... The only way to do this is if it's a spell, isn't it? Mace of Terror. Well, that's fine. It says DC 15. Right this way. Let's break this up so it's a little easier. Okay, so the idea is it can fear you and then move you back into the actual wind turbine trap. Which is pretty much the only good thing that's going to do because of Rotting Fist. Although it does say it can use Dreadful Glare and make an attack. So I wonder if I could rule that it can use Mace of Terror and make an attack. Actually, let's get rid of that first line then. Players don't know that. There we go. So just to give it something else. I mean, it's, again... Actually, never mind. It's 10 plus... So it's actually average of 20 damage. You include that necrotic damage. That's pretty solid. So I'd probably allow it to do an attack and then unleash its Mace of Terror. Mace of Terror. So the wind turbine, the whole way to do that is just to not step on the ground, which is one big pressure plate. So you could either use wall climbing, or I don't think you can jump that, because you would need to clear 40 feet with a jump, and I don't think anybody can do that. Although you could... I don't think anybody can do a 30-foot jump either. I don't believe the party had... Well, they do have some teleporting abilities. Now, George, if we recall, I think he already used Dimension Door this day. Because I think he used his cape in the Red Wizard fight. He, I think, isn't that right? Didn't he grab somebody and, teleport them to a corner? I think I remember that happening. And they didn't long rest after that fight, so that's... Any resources used in that fight is still the same here. Although Gillian does have the spell Dimension Door. Now, I read on somebody's recap that there are certain spells that are altered in the tomb. And the teleporting spells are one of them. And the idea is if you use a teleport spell, you are instead teleported to that oubliette room with the Ochug and the levers and all that. But if you read the actual fine print, that only happens if you try to leave the tomb, which I can't imagine most players would until they've actually completed. Or maybe you're trying to be clever and we'll go out for a long rest or something. But if you just try to teleport within the tomb, it still works normal. So you could still cast, I think she could still cast a Dimension Door, although I think you can only bring one person with you. Or, let's see. Place you can see. You can bring along objects. You can also bring one willing creature of your size or smaller. So yeah, you can teleport one person with Dimension Door. So that would be one way to get across, but only 2 people would be able to make it, including Gillian. Otherwise, Theron could transport into a spider that could climb on a wall. There are ways to get across. You just have to figure out that it's the stepping on the ground that's the problem. Otherwise, this wind turbine can be very, very scary, and has a kind of a cool wind tunnel effect that draws you in and all those kind of rules. So that could be very fun because players are very bad at athletics checks, which I think, is that what this is? The creature begins to turn. The creature must make a DC 20 athletics check. Oh, sorry, that's if they're holding it. It's a DC 15 strength saving throw if they're within 10 feet of the propeller once it is spinning. And then you're hurled northward. So in that case, I believe the fan is pointed towards here. Because I'm thinking if the Mace of Terror drives them down here, I guess it would still cause them to run into the fan, even though the fan would turn on and start spinning. Yeah, so the fan would start spinning. They would like fear run into the fan. It's probably not going to go off because this mummy's not going to last very long. It depends on the initiative order, I guess, and could potentially cut them up. The worst case scenario is if it's spinning full blast and you try to run through it. I don't think you even can, and you just take a bazillion damage. At full speed, the propeller deals 12d10 slashing damage, and the blades are turning too fast for a creature to leap between them. Don't even try. Otherwise, that's the end of level 1. So we could actually have potentially some combat encounters in level 1. And then level 2, we can start planning out a bit. And I did tease the Tomb Dwarf, which was, of course, the secret door here in this corner. Level 2, again, it depends on if they want to go back into that workshop and fight those guys, or they can go down the stairs, which takes them to here, which they do get to see the second warning, which is on the wall in the middle of the balcony, and there are 3 paths that you can see, and then the fourth one is the secret entrance that you really wouldn't see unless you walked, which they, again, if they take the stairs, they will eventually see it, which actually goes around to the other side of where that workshop was. The north path is a green devil face, which I believe is this one. Let's see, what's the warnings for level 2? This one leads down to level 3. It's just an opening. It's chapter Serac warnings. There we go. So I believe this one is Into Darkness Descend. So the ring is a path to another tomb. That's this one, which I think is kind of problematic. Because the idea of a cross-dimensional tomb on top of this one is bizarre and strange. It's just weird. I don't know how to play that necessarily. Because you could go in there and just have this. I mean, is everything copied in there? Is it the same? Can you get multiple like spirits? Like, it's just very, very weird. I have a lot of questions with the way this ring works. And the only thing it says in the text is it's a parallel reality. It's a mirror tomb hidden inside a demi-plane. The mirror tomb is identical to the real tomb as it stood exactly 1 year ago. All objects and creatures encountered in the mirror tomb appear real, but they fade away if taken to the real world. Oh, that's the answer. So anything that if you stay in here and anything you get would actually just fade. I mean, what a pain in the ass that is. Like, you wouldn't understand that. Mirror tomb has the same magical defense as the true tomb, and any character who dies in the demi-plane is trapped in the soulmonger. Each dawn of Serac's magic replaces the mirror tomb with a fresh fabrication. Slain monsters reappear in their original locations, and moved objects teleport back to where they were found. It's bizarre. The nice thing is you can get some nice information from Devlin here, who is probably the first body you end up finding from the Company of the Yellow Banner, which I will finally be able to update that quest log that they've had for a while, which is this one, Discover the Fate of the Company of the Yellow Banner. Let's find all their dead bodies. As well as, I believe, his staff and spellbook, which Manix might want to copy some spells. This area is weird. It's a fake tomb. I mean, it looks like it's got the sarcophagus and everything, but it is, in fact, not a real tomb, which this is the, I believe, the dead abhor sunlight. If you can block the sun, then nothing bad happens. This is also one that I'm not terribly fond of how it works. But you can see I need to cut this off because you can, for some reason in Roll20, you can just see all this river of, it looks like blood, but it's wine. We need to block that off because if the players see that, I don't think that works at all. So let's do like that, I guess. Let's just copy and paste. Can I move that at all? Nope. I can make it a little bit bigger. I did a really bad job of this, but whatever. So hopefully they won't see that there's fucking pools of wine back there, and this whole thing just fills up, and then you get attacked by these wine weirds, which are just water weirds. Which I don't know why we can't just use the freaking picture for water weirds. Oh, shit. Let's copy and paste. Because I am going to delete these because I'm pretty sure it's the exact same thing as a water weird, isn't it? What number is this? Number 20. Yeah. Use water weird statistics. Well, guess what? Oh, do we have water weirds in here? Do I have them? Ah, shit. I only have water elementals. Damn it. So I have to make a token for wine weirds. Fantastic. I mean, it's a neat, I guess, situation, but the players have to be dumb enough to try to open this thing without following the clue, without breaking that sunlight, and then the whole area fills with wine. Yeah, this door closes until it fills all the way up, and then you're attacked by these water weirds, and then there's just nothing inside of this false tomb. And the ability to breathe water does not help a character breathe wine. So that's an interesting, like, aha, for the DM. There is a secret path up one. If for some reason they decide to actually crawl through one of the mouths, a small character can actually make it all the way to this real tomb in 24. Otherwise, level 2 is weird. Otherwise, your main path is to go up here, which leads to level 3. That's all it is, just a hole that leads to that cool hieroglyphic floor 1. Kind of the classic Indiana Jones Last Crusade puzzle room, which is a neat one. But it's just odd that this would drop you right in the middle of that one where the tomb is, which is actually not a good way to enter that dungeon, which is kind of funny because you have to be able to see the puzzle from the other entrance on level 3. If you try to jump down and open the tomb, I believe this wall of force comes around you and like traps you inside. Or there's a door here, which has these weird like pulley system with these zombies. So as long as the zombies are by the door, you can't open this door. You have to lead them away. Which hopefully I can describe that well enough to explain that to the players that they are actual connected. How does the door? 3 oval holes are carved into a 9-foot wide, 9-foot high stone door at human head height. As you approach, 3 humanoid heads stick out of the holes, each covered in putrid flesh and gnashing on an iron bit bolted to a chain bridle. Belonging to 3 zombies that are chained to a pulley bolted to the ceiling in the south side of the door. The pulley is set up in such a way that when all 3 zombies move away from the door, they heave it open. The zombies won't move while fresh meat tempts them from the balcony. The door weighs 1,000 pounds. Characters with a combined strength of 33 or more can lift the door. The zombies attack any creature that can reach the door. Obviously, characters would just, I assume, try to kill these zombies, Walking Dead style, like while they're there. Just shove your, swords through there and attack them, which I would probably rule that, well, if they're literally sticking their heads, I mean, do they give the zombies cover? Because I'm literally picturing a Walking Dead situation where they're just like sitting there right there and you've lured them in and you can attack them. Not only would I probably not give them cover, I might even give the players advantage because zombies are kind of in a perfect killing spot. But if you do that, it makes the door a lot harder. So you would have to do, which I liked what I did for that sewer grate thing, which was instead of making a combined strength score, which is odd, you can just have multiple characters lift it, nothing bad happens. Instead, have one character make an athletics check or a strength check, whatever, to lift it. And if they don't get the target number I've determined, they still are able to lift it, but it causes extra strain and they lose hit dice, which I think is a little better than just straight up exhaustion, but still maintains that feeling of like you had to overexert yourself to get this done. So it'd probably be like another, like a DC 20 strength check to try to lift that open. And you probably wouldn't be able to like sit there and heave it open. So you want to lift it and sneak somebody in and then they can drag the zombie bodies and open the door that way. That's kind of how I picture my players doing it. I don't see them necessarily being clever about shooing the zombies away. And then this room, if you jack with basically anything in this room, which this is the Bow is the Dead God Intoned one, then a bunch of skeletons start pouring out of these cauldrons and like a shit ton. I believe it's, 12 skeletons crawl out of glass cauldrons, 2 per cauldron. A cauldron disgorges one additional skeleton at the start of the skeleton's turn each round until the cauldron is destroyed or the tomb is cleared of interlopers. I believe you can stop it if you bow before the god, because it says bow is the dead god intoned, which the idea is you're supposed to like bow before no one or something. And there's one of the faces that has one of the heads has no face. Does that stop it or not? Destroying the cauldron stops the flow of skeletons, as does bowing before the faceless statue. Bow before no one. Oh, and it's an inscription in this room that says bow before no one. So if you do that, it stops the flow of skeletons, but it doesn't stop them attacking you. And then in addition to that, if the chariot, sarcophagus, or treasure is disturbed, or if the shield is removed from the wall, the hunter embossed on it animates. Each round on initiative 20, it flings a magical spear of force that the nearest character can see. I may actually just include that whenever the skeletons pour out. Which is, again, if basically the chariot, sarcophagus, or the treasures, or anything is jacked with, then that statue will animate. That is a plus 10 to hit, deals an average of 18 force damage, 48 force damage on a hit. Oddly enough, if that kills you, you are disintegrated and turned to dust. I don't know why that's the case. That seems very random to me. You can drape something opaque over the shield or turn the shield to face a wall. The shield can also be destroyed. AC of 15, 10 hit points, immune to all damage except force damage. So that's just a giant combat encounter waiting to happen, essentially. The players, if they do anything, just immediately start spawning hordes of skeletons, which is really interesting, I think, to have just hordes of basically really weak creatures, to where I don't think I'm going to roll hit points because skeletons have so few hit points anyway. I mean, the range is, what is that? 2, 4, 8. The range is between 8 and 20, which at this point in their career, I don't know if that range actually matters that much for the characters to deal with. And that's a lot of hit points to roll. So I think I'm just going to keep them all on their average hit points. And it will spawn 2 immediately. And then on the skeleton's turn, it will spawn more skeletons, 1 per cauldron. How do they stop? Does bowing stop the... It doesn't say that bowing before the dead god actually stops that shield hunter, though. Even though that's supposed to be the solution. That's interesting. It just says you can block its line of sight, turn the shield, or try to destroy it. It's the only way to get rid of it. Everything is radiating. Detect magic, conjuration around the cauldrons, and conjuration around the shield. That is Papazodal, who gives an amulet of health. And Papazodal is lawful evil, bow before no one, and expect others to do as I command. Yikes. It's kind of problematic in a party. The host can't be surprised. Gains advantage on all wisdom checks and never takes damage from falling. All right. Those are not the most exciting, because there's no active abilities there, but I mean, a lot of them are kind of just passive increases. But all 3 of those could come in handy. That's interesting. There is a secret door here which leads to a fucking genie, which is really cool. It's an earth genie, Keshma, which could be an extremely powerful ally. And I believe you're supposed to kind of work with the players. I would probably play around with the 3 wishes thing in terms of but they won't be like literally the wish spell. It'll be like, hey, there's 3 times that I can help you, in the tomb solve something, including I can join you in battle would be 1 time. So that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. I'll give you 3 ways I can help you, and kind of leave it up to the players in terms of how they want to actually use her. So hopefully they'll find that, because I think that's pretty cool. And then the other one, another secret door, is just a Gray Slod fight. That's basically all it is. Although Gray Slods are pretty strong. AC 1800 plus hit points. It's Control Gem, which I believe is only a jewel can tame the frog, because they look like kind of frog demons. And the jewel, I think, is in Withers' office. But my players have never faced a slot and don't know how the Control Gem things work, so I think they would just treat this as a fight. I think it starts off, is it invisible, or how does that work? Or does it have that ability? It's got Plane Shift. That is number 24, which is Nang Nang's tomb, which that makes sense because he's the frog. An invisible Gray Slod, yep. And there's obviously this big salt thing around there. Now, George has his True Sight bandana, so he will be able to see that creature moving around invisibly. It's kind of like 13 Ghosts with George. Like, he can see like all the dangerous things that other people can't see. He's got magic resistance. He actually regenerates every turn. He heals 10 hit points. He can also cast Fear, Fly, and Fireball, in addition to doing not a whole lot of damage, actually. His claws aren't that good. His bite's not that good. So he's actually more of a beefy spellcaster. Fear isn't terribly useful in this particular location. There's no fun direction for them to run to. Other than, I guess, it could fuck people up and just get them out of the way. Oh, wait, he's got more than that. Sorry. Detect Magic, Detect Thoughts, Invisibility, Self-Only, Mage Hand, and Major Image at will. So we can cast Invisibility at will. That's interesting. You could always have the Slod, like, retreat. Although George could still see it. Could cast Invisibility as an action and then just run. Or just cast a couple Fireballs. That's always going to soften the party up pretty effectively. So that'll probably be a boss fight if they make it in there. And then Nang Nang's is Selfish and Cruel. I won't share with others. The host can move up, down, and across vertical surfaces and upside down along ceilings while leaving its hands free. It gains a climbing speed equal to its walking speed. That's pretty damn useful, too. Although still not as powerful as Invisibility at will. Or all your stats becoming higher, which those must be the deeper down. There's Dex, Strength, and Con can all become 23. Which is that +6 or +7 at that point? 23? I mean, 20 is +5. 21 and 22 would be, I think, or no, 20. Let's see, how does that work? Because if you've got an 18 or 19, you're a 4. So if you've got 20 or 21, you're a 5. 22 and 23 are a +6. So a +6. So somebody like Manix, who's got like a nothing con, could take that con one and just get a fuck ton of hit points all of a sudden. Fascinating. And I think that's all the ones here. Into Darkness Descend is obviously just the devil face. I think level 2 overall is the lamest dungeon. There's not a whole lot of interesting, fun things going on. I think the false tomb here is kind of a shitty thing to do to the players. And I think the whole, like, just filling up a room with water, and it adds complications, because there's, like, you're supposed to keep track of rounds, and here's how much the water's rising and all that. It might have the potential to be interesting. I don't think so. The fact that one of the rooms is just a passage to a deeper part of the dungeon is lame. The Cauldron Skeleton one is probably the most interesting. Hopefully they definitely get the genie, because I think that could be really fun. And then the Gray Slod could be a decent fight. Although, as we know, a single creature by itself, even as beefy as it can be, 100 plus hit points with 18 AC, it's not going to last very long. So I will need to prep for tomorrow, certainly a Withers meeting, which, as you notice, I put some Tomb Guardians in here to make things interesting. I do plan on having this be a role-playing scene, but having Withers escape, because I still want him to be a factor. throughout the dungeon, and I believe he's got enough spells that lets him do that. He's got... Well, he doesn't have any spells on him. I guess it's the amulet that he wears that lets him do that. His only spells, let's see, Lightning Bolt, Hold Person, Darkness, Blight. Telekinesis is his only 5th level spell. I guess Blight could be... Blight's just a single target, big damage, isn't it? I don't want to have him... I mean, he only has 45 hit points. He's not designed to actually fight anybody straight up. 88 necrotic damage. So I put 2 Tomb Guardians in here just to make things interesting if the party does start some shit, with the idea that he will escape as soon as he can. I think using that Amulet of the Black Skull, which is here, which I believe lets you just teleport. 6 charges. While wearing the amulet, you can use action expend 1 charge to transport yourself and anything you're wearing and carrying to a location within 100 feet of you. Doesn't need to be in your line of sight, but must be familiar to you and must be on the same plane of existence to you. This effect isn't subject to the magic restrictions placed on the Tomb of the 9 Gods, as the amulet can be used to enter and exit the tomb. But if you're not undead, then bad things happen to you. So, when the fight breaks out... I'm tempted to let him like escape in a surprise, because I don't think he's going to survive even a single round. Like, he's got 45 fucking hit points. He doesn't have shield or anything like that. He's just a fucking goner. I don't care what kind of spells he's got. He's got nothing that's going to keep him alive. So probably if a fight breaks out, I will have to use like a bullshit surprise round to allow him to use that amulet to disappear. But then because they started to fight, these 2 like Tomb Guardians will probably just, give him something. And then they still would be able to loot his office, which his office does have, I guess his spell book. It's got some notes on how to do the mirror, which is on whatever level that's on. 4, I think. He's got a manual of golems. He's got the control gem for the slot. He's got a skeletal songbird. And he's got a journal entry. So yeah, get some options in there. It just says Withers would rather escape than be destroyed or captured, so he uses his spells to retreat if the battle goes against him, saving Wall of Fire to cut off pursuers when he flees. Where are you gonna fucking flee to, dude? You don't have any escape here. You're gonna have to run through all the players. Like, you're not gonna fucking survive this. You have to use your amulet to just disappear. And if you're doing that, I think that does count as an action, doesn't it? Yeah, you can use an action. So he can't cast a spell and teleport away. So fortunately, Withers probably not going to actually use any of your spells, at least in this initial meeting. And then later on, assuming that does happen, I can have Withers appear and harass the players in some form or fashion. But I think that will do it for level 1 and level 2 prep. Hopefully we don't get deeper than that. I'll have to have some emergency prep for level 5 in case the players fall down that waterfall. But other than that, that's the kind of prep we're looking at. So thank you all for joining me for this week's Crafting Annihilation. I will be live streaming some more tomorrow. Let's play for Ori and the Will of the Wisps. And I will see you all for Tomb of Annihilation tomorrow as we dive deeper into the titular tomb. See you then. Bye.